Many EPPP exam questions are difficult because the incorrect answers are built around the kinds of reasoning mistakes that even prepared test takers make under pressure. An answer may sound familiar, feel thorough, or reflect something that is generally true, but still fail to match the scenario. This video focuses on these patterns so you can recognize why a distractor is tempting before you select it. One pattern involves selecting an answer because it includes familiar terminology. Certain terms stand out because they are frequently emphasized in coursework and study materials. When you see these terms in an answer choice, it can create a sense of confidence. However, this sense of familiarity does not guarantee that the option fits the situation. The task is to evaluate whether the answer matches the specific details in the scenario. Another pattern involves overlooking details in the question. Important information is often embedded in the scenario, and this information is there to guide your decision. A single detail, such as timing, severity, context, or role, can change the interpretation of the situation. When this detail is missed, it is easier to select an answer that fits a general idea, but does not align with the actual case. You may also notice answer choices that are more complex than necessary. These options often include multiple steps or describe a full course of action. They can sound thorough and well-developed, which makes them appealing. The correct answer often reflects an appropriate level of response for the situation. It addresses what is needed at that moment without adding unnecessary steps. Another area where reasoning errors occur involves interpretation of information. In research scenarios, this often appears as treating an association as though it implies causation. A study may show that two variables are related, and an answer choice may describe one variable as causing the other. The correct answer reflects what the data supports, which in this case is the presence of a relationship, not a cause. In assessment scenarios, interpretation errors can involve misreading test results or overlooking issues related to validity and reliability. Validity refers to whether an assessment measures what it is intended to measure. Reliability refers to the consistency of the measurement. An answer may describe a conclusion that goes beyond what the assessment data supports. The correct response stays within the limits of the information provided. Base rates and prevalence also play a role in many questions. Some conditions occur more frequently than others, and this information influences how likely a diagnosis is in a given situation. Ignoring base rates can lead to selecting an answer that matches one detail in the scenario, while overlooking how common or uncommon the condition is. The correct answer reflects both the details of the case and the likelihood of different possibilities. Another pattern involves the way the question is framed. A scenario may include detailed information about symptoms, which can draw attention toward diagnosis. The actual question may ask for the next step, an ethical issue, or an interpretation of the information provided. Focusing on the most prominent part of the scenario instead of the task being asked can lead to choosing an answer that addresses the wrong issue. There are also situations where general knowledge leads you toward an answer that does not fit the specific case. An option may be correct in many situations, and this familiarity can make it appealing. The correct answer reflects the details provided in the scenario, even when it differs from what might be done in a more general context. These errors are easier to recognize when you look at how a tempting answer extends beyond the evidence in the question. Let's walk through an example involving research. A study examines the relationship between hours of social media use and reported anxiety levels among adolescents. The results show a strong relationship between the two variables. The question asks what conclusion can be drawn from the findings. Multiple answer choices may describe social media as causing increased anxiety or as having a direct effect on mental health. These options extend beyond what the study shows. The study identifies a relationship between two variables. It does not establish that one variable causes the other. The correct answer reflects that limitation and describes the findings as an association. Now consider an example involving diagnosis. A client presents with symptoms that could fit more than one disorder. The question asks which diagnosis is most appropriate. Some answer choices include disorders that are commonly recognized or that share overlapping features. These options may feel familiar and therefore appealing. The correct answer depends on the specific pattern of symptoms described in the scenario. Details such as duration, onset, intensity, impairment, context, and associated features distinguish one diagnosis from another. Matching the diagnosis to those details leads to the correct answer. These examples show how reasoning errors can arise from relying on familiarity, overlooking details, or extending conclusions beyond the available information. The problem is usually not that the tempting answer is completely unrelated. The problem is that it does not fit the evidence as precisely as the correct answer does. As you work through questions, it helps to notice your initial reaction to each answer choice. If an option feels immediately appealing, take a moment to check whether it truly fits the scenario. This pause allows you to evaluate the answer more carefully and reduces the influence of familiarity, completeness, or general correctness. Another helpful step is to review incorrect answers and identify the reasoning pattern behind the mistake. Ask why the answer was tempting. Did it use familiar terminology? Did it sound comprehensive? Did it answer a different task? Did it extend beyond what the data supported? Over time, these patterns become easier to recognize, and you begin to anticipate how distractors are constructed. The goal is to develop awareness of how these reasoning patterns influence your decisions. With this awareness, you can approach each question more deliberately and make choices that reflect the details of the scenario and the limits of the information provided. Across this foundation series, the larger goal has been the same. Read the scenario carefully, identify the task, consider the role and context, and choose the answer that fits the situation as it is presented.